Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Jutkofosky. I work at the Polymer Advanced Energy Sustainability Lab. This is my project titled Different Humidity Levels Affect Impact on Polymer Thermal Conductivity. So this is some background research and the motivation for my research. And so in 2006, a group of researchers in my lab that I work in now did research on amphiphilic block copolymers, which are block copolymers that consist of a hydrophilic and hydrophobic block. And the data shows that as they increased the water activity of these polymers, they saw a decrease in the melting temperature, and they also saw a decrease in the degree of crystallinity. Now, what they looked at specifically was polyethylene oxide and polystyrene, and those are the two polymers that I will be looking at for my research as well. We want to see exactly how the water activity affects their thermal conductivity. And below is a figure of a lamellar block copolymer structure. So the methods and materials, what we did to prepare our samples is that we pressed them with a high amount of pressure and a high amount of heat to create circular small samples, which we then put into a vacuum oven to reset the thermal memory of the samples. And the reason for this is that we saw a correlation between crystallinity and thermal conductivity. So we wanted to create the same crystallinity for all the samples. We then put them into the environmental chamber, where we equilibrated them at 3 different humidities, 25%, 50%, 85%. Figure 3, as you can see here on the right, is the C-therm trident, which we then use to test our samples' thermal conductivities, because that's what this instrument is used for, to use for testing thermal conductivity. These are my results. Figure 4 is a data table with different levels of humidity and the corresponding thermal conductivities, as well as standard deviation for polyethylene oxide and polystyrene. And then to the right, figure 5 and 6 is a graph that shows the data. And as you can see, for each graph, there's 2 samples that are very close in conductivity and one that is an outlier. My conclusion and discussion is, from looking at our results, we see that our hypothesis for this was not correct. PEO increased and polystyrene, or polyethylene oxide increased and polystyrene decreased, whereas we thought the opposite would happen. We also noticed 2 very distinct trends in our data. One that showed a convergence in thermal conductivity. So as the humidity increased, we saw less variability in our thermal conductivities. And we also noticed that the sample that were the furthest away from the convergence point also showed the fastest rate of change. So for the next couple of steps for this research, we plan on figuring out exactly why there was a convergence point and exactly why the polymer furthest away from the convergence point showed such a fast rate of change. And the potential impacts of this research is that we now have a much better understanding of thermal diffusion inside of these polymers when exposed to water. And I also just want to say thank you to everyone at the REU program and everyone at the PAES lab for such an amazing summer and program.